Hello and welcome to Get Great at Maths. Today's video is from the GCSE Mathematics OCR J560 exam paper, the June 2022 series on the higher tier, paper 4, and we're going to be looking at question 16 from the calculator paper. Now question 16 is to do with interpreting exponential growth formula. And in this question, there are quite a few words, but this type of question is pretty much a guaranteed question to come up on the paper 4 on the OCR exam board. Now in this question, there's a key bit of information here on line 3, where I'm just drawing the arrow to. And this formula here is really important that you understand what it means, because it does link in with the compound interest formula that you've met previously. Now, compound interest formula says that you've got the initial amount times your multiplier to the power of years. Okay, and this is exactly the same in this formula here. So exponential growth works very similarly to the compound interest because they're interlinked. Now, in this question here, we've got the prices of the house in 2016. So we're highlighting key bits of information from the question as we go along. Now, we're assuming the value of the house can be used to predict the formula V equals 185,000 times 1.035 to the power of n, where n is the number of years after that start date of 2016. And we've got to explain in part A how you know that the value of the house is predicted to increase each year. Now, this bit of information comes from this multiplier. Okay, now I'm going to show you exactly how to do the multiplier in part B, so you might want to look back into part A after you've done part B, because it will make a little bit more sense. But basically, if you have got a number here greater than 1, you have got an increase, and if you've got a number less than 1, you have got a decrease. Now the number we have got here is 1.035, which is greater than 1, which means it's an increase. And the mark scheme will literally give you 1 mark. Okay, so this number here in the square bracket tells you how many marks it is. Literally 1 mark for writing 1.035 is greater than 1. OE means or equivalent. So you need to just state that that number there, the multiplier, is greater than 1. Now, as I said, in part B, we're going to look at finding this multiplier, because we've got to write down the percentage increase. So they want to be more specific now. What is this percentage increase per year that is used in the formula? Okay, and again, this is coming from the multiplier. Now, this is a key formula, so make sure you've written it down and highlight it. So the multiplier is 100 plus your percentage divided by 100, and that's what it is if it's a percentage increase. If it's a decrease, you would do 100 take away the percentage divided by 100. Now we're just going to put in the values we know. And we know the multiplier is 1.035. So if we replace the multiplier with 1.035, the rest of the numbers stay exactly the same, and we're going to rearrange this formula to find out this percentage, because that's what the question is asking us to do. Now, if I multiply 1.035 by 100, it will get rid of this 100 down here in the denominator. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 100, leaving me with 103.5 is equal to 100 plus the percentage. Now, to get the percentage on its own, we need to get rid of this plus 100 here. So the opposite to plus 100 is subtract 100. So the percentage is going to be 103.5 take away 100, which is 3.5%. You need to write that in your answer box. And again, this was worth 1 mark. So you can see at the end of the question here in the square bracket, that tells us how many marks the question is. And the mark scheme is just 1 mark for writing a 3.5. Part C is still linked to this same formula, and we've now got to write down the value of the house at the start of 2016. And we're told that this formula works from 2016. So in the question it says where n is the number of years after the start of 2016. So this is our starting point, or our initial value. So initially, when we're in 2016, no time has passed, so we say n is equal to 0. So then you're just going to plug n is 0 into the formula that is given here on the third row down again. So that V equals 185,000 times 1.035 to the power of n. This time n is going to be 0 though. Now you should know anything to the power of 0 is 1. But if you're unsure, you're allowed a calculator on this question. So type it in on your calculator. Make sure you know how to use your calculator to get the answer. which is 185,000 times by 1, which is just 185,000. Make sure you write it on the answer mark, answer box or line even, and then that will tell you how many marks you've got for that question. So this question was worth 1 mark. Now part D is worth 2 marks. Okay, so we've got to do a little bit of working out on this one. So we've got to calculate the predicted value of the house at the start of 2020, giving your answer to 4 significant figures, and they've highlighted that number 4 just in case you haven't read the question carefully, and you'll see why that's important in a minute. Now we've got n equals 2022 take away 2016, which is equal to 4. So that is the number of years. Now the number of years is going to be my initial amount, which is 185,000 times by 1.035 to the power of 4, and that is worth 1 mark. Now I need to type that into my calculator. So if you type that in, you should get the answer 212,291. But the question says write your answer to 4 significant figures. So if you wrote that, you will only have got 1 mark. Here I have got 1, 2, 3, 4, and there are actually 5, 6 significant figures in the answer that I've just written down. But we've got to write the answer to 4 significant figures. So to help us do that, after the 4 significant figures, okay, we draw a line down and we're going to look at the digit afterwards, which is this 9 here. Now the 9 is bigger than 5, so that tells us we're going to round up. So rounding this number to 4 significant figures is 212,300, and that's your second mark. Now you can see on the mark scheme for this one that you get 1 mark for doing the 185,000 times by 1.035 to the power of 4, or writing out that whole digit without rounding to 4 significant figures. The second mark comes from making sure it is rounding to 4 significant figures. Now part E of this question, we've got to compare its value at the start of 2016 and show what happens, show that the formula predicts the house will have doubled in value at some point during 2036. So that is between the year 2036 and the year 2037. So we've got to see what is going on. So initially, if I just look at the house price in 2016 and double it, I get 185,000 times by 2, which gives me 370,000. Now, if I take 2036 and work out the number of years, 2036 take away the 2016, which is the initial part, gives me 20. If I put that in the formula, again, the same formula on the third line down here, I've got V equals 185,000 times 1.035 to the power of 20, and that is 1 mark. If you work that answer out, you get 368,111. So that's your second mark. This question is worth 3 marks in total. Okay, so you can see there's 3 marks in total for this question. Now, once I've done that for 2036, it says show that it has doubled in value at some point during this 2036. Now, in 2036, the doubling amount is 370,000. Now, we haven't quite made 370,000 in the year 2036. So we're going to look at what happens in 2037. So n is now going to be 1 year later, or 1 more year, which is 21. And if I type 21 in, I get 185,000 times 1.035 to the power of 21, which gives me 380,995 for 1 mark. So that is my third mark. But you do need to make sure that you understand what you've just shown here, because this 370,000 is now between the 368,111 and the 380,995. So we have shown that the house price has doubled in that time. Now you can see on the mark scheme there are 2 marks for getting this 368,111. That's the 2 marks here. And then there's another mark for where we put the n is 21 in. Here gives me the third mark. Now they have got an alternative method over on the right hand side. The top one here is just looking at using the multiplier to the power of 20 and the multiplier to the power of 21. And that just shows us that we have got a value of 1.98 and 2.05. Now 2.05 is over 2, which when you get to 2, that's when you're doubling. So that's being able to interpret that result. There's an alternative method. I think the first method that I've shown you above is slightly easier to understand in terms of values, so you can actually see that it has physically doubled. Now in part II, we've got to give one reason why this may not happen. Now this is worth 1 mark, you can see in the square box, and there are numerous answers you can give. I'm just going to show you the mark scheme so you can see what answers they were actually looking for. So any correct explanation, the rate of increase may not continue. And then it says see appendix. Now I'm just going to put up the appendix here. So this is some example of responses for question 16E part 2. Any of these answers at the top, okay, are worth 1 mark. Okay, so the rate of increase may not continue. The house price could fluctuate. They could drop. Something may cause the price to drop. They may increase at different rates. The house may be demolished. Except any home improvements, e.g. extension, might increase faster than predicted. Any of those will give you 1 mark. The answers down the bottom will give you 0 marks. So if you said it's only an estimate, or it's only a prediction, or the house market may have changed, they won't give you a mark. Thanks for listening. This is a video done by Get Great at Maths. If you enjoyed this and you would like to see more, please click like and subscribe to watch more videos. Thanks.